You get the promotion you've been working toward for 3 years. The salary bump is real. The title change feels good for about a week. And then one Tuesday morning, you're stuck in the same traffic, drinking the same coffee, feeling roughly the same as before. You expected more than this. Most of us do. This is one of the oldest questions humans carry around. Can money actually buy happiness? Not in a bumper sticker way, not as a philosophical debate at a dinner party, but really, scientifically, measurably. Does having more money make people genuinely happier? The answer science gives is more interesting than yes or no. It's a story about what happiness actually is, and why we're so consistently wrong about what creates it. Let's start with the study everyone has heard about. In 2010, two Princeton researchers published a landmark finding. Beyond $75,000 a year, more money stopped improving happiness. That number spread everywhere. It became a cultural shorthand for an idea. Money matters up to a point, and then it doesn't. People quoted it at dinner tables and in self-help books. It felt true in a satisfying way. Tidy, resolved, case closed. Except the science kept going. In 2021, a researcher named Matthew Killingsworth ran a much larger study. He tracked the real-time emotional states of 33,000 people, using an app that pinged them randomly throughout their days, not asking how they felt in theory, asking how they felt right now, in this actual moment. His finding was different. Happiness kept rising with income well past 75,000. It didn't flatten, it kept climbing. Two major studies, two serious researchers, completely opposite conclusions. So they did something unusual in science. They worked together to figure out who was right. What they found is more nuanced than either study alone. For most people, more money does mean more happiness, steadily, measurably across a wide range of incomes. But for a specific group of people, the relationship broke down. People who were already deeply unhappy. For them, more money helped up to a point. But beyond a certain level, it stopped moving the needle. Their unhappiness had a different source, one that money couldn't reach. This distinction matters enormously, because it means money isn't the answer or the non-answer. It depends entirely on what is making you unhappy in the first place. Think about pain for a moment. If you have a headache, a glass of water and some rest genuinely helps. But if you have a broken leg, water doesn't touch it. You need something different. Money works similarly. If your unhappiness comes from financial stress, instability, or scarcity, money directly addresses the source. The relief is real and measurable. But if your unhappiness comes from loneliness, grief, or lack of purpose, money is water for a broken leg. It doesn't reach the thing that's actually wrong. Here's what financial stress actually does to the human brain. Researchers at Princeton ran a study on sugarcane farmers in India. These farmers receive one large annual payment after harvest. Before the harvest, they are genuinely poor. After the harvest, they are relatively comfortable. The same people, weeks apart, in dramatically different financial states. The researchers tested cognitive function at both points. Before the harvest, with money scarce and bills looming, the farmers performed significantly worse on cognitive tests, not because they were less intelligent, because financial worry consumes mental bandwidth. The brain is running a constant background calculation. How do I cover rent? What if the car breaks? What about the kids? That calculation uses real cognitive resources that are then unavailable for everything else. This is why telling poor people to just make better financial decisions is so incomplete. The mental load of poverty actively impairs the decision-making you'd need to escape it. It's not a character flaw, it's a neurological consequence of chronic scarcity. And removing that scarcity by giving people more money measurably restores cognitive function. This is one of the clearest ways money buys something that feels a lot like happiness, or at least like relief. And relief, when you haven't felt it in a long time, can feel indistinguishable from joy. Now let's talk about something that surprises almost everyone. How you spend money matters far more than how much you have. This is one of the most replicated findings in happiness research, and most of us get it profoundly wrong. Consistently, predictably, almost universally. Researchers asked people to predict which would make them happier, buying something for themselves, or spending the same amount on someone else. The majority predicted spending on themselves would feel better. The majority was wrong. Across studies, across countries, across income levels, spending money on other people produces more lasting happiness than spending it on yourself. A $5 gift to a friend, a small donation to a cause you care about, buying coffee for the person behind you in line, these produce a measurable emotional boost, one that spending the same $5 on yourself does not. Why does this happen? Because connection is one of the deepest drivers of human happiness, and spending on others generates connection. It creates a moment of relationship. It makes you feel effective and generous. It reminds you that your actions affect the world around you. Spending on yourself usually doesn't create any of those feelings, unless what you're buying creates experiences that involve other people. Which brings us to the next finding. Experiences beat things. Almost every time, in almost every study, when researchers ask people to recall their purchases and rate how happy they made them, material goods score lower than experiential ones. The handbag, the new laptop, the upgraded car, they feel good briefly and then become invisible. They get absorbed into your background. They stop generating positive emotion once the novelty fades. But the weekend trip you took with your closest friends, the concert where you stood in the rain and didn't care, The cooking class you did badly but laughed through the whole time. Those get better with time, because you retell them, relive them, build identity around them. The experience becomes part of who you are. The thing just becomes part of your apartment. There's a psychological mechanism underneath this. It's called adaptation, and it is relentless. Your brain is designed to return to a baseline emotional state. Whatever happens to you, good or bad, you tend to drift back toward your default. Win the lottery. Lose the use of your legs. Within a couple of years, studies show, people return to something close to their prior happiness level. This sounds almost cruel, but it's actually one of the most important features of the human mind. It allows us to survive loss and disappointment without being permanently destroyed. The problem is, it works the same way on the upside. The raise, the new house, the dream car. Adaptation comes for all of it. The technical term is the hedonic treadmill. You keep moving, the feeling keeps resetting, and the things you thought would make you happy fade into normal life. Experiences resist adaptation better than objects, because experiences are bounded. They happened once. They can't become ordinary background. You can't look at your memories until they bore you. They stay vivid in a way that a couch simply cannot. This is why the research consistently shows the same thing. If you want your money to generate lasting happiness, buy fewer things. Buy more moments. Now here's a finding that most financial advice never touches. Buying time is one of the highest return investments you can make in happiness. Researchers surveyed thousands of people across multiple countries. They asked whether respondents spent money to buy themselves more free time. Things like hiring help, paying for convenience, outsourcing tasks they hated. People who did this reported significantly higher life satisfaction. Not because they were richer necessarily, because they had traded money for the one resource that actually felt scarce. Hours in a day that belonged to them. Most of us do the opposite calculation instinctively. We do the task ourselves to save $20. We drive across town to find the slightly cheaper option. We spend 3 hours on a Saturday doing something we dread to avoid a small expense. The math feels right. The feeling it creates does not. Valuing your own time is not laziness. It is one of the most evidence-backed ways to use money well. Let's talk about something called the comparison trap, because it might be the single most effective way money destroys happiness. Your salary goes up by $10,000. You feel good for a moment. Then you discover your colleague got $12,000. Now you feel worse than before the raise. Not because your situation changed, because the reference point changed. This is social comparison, and it is embedded so deeply in human psychology that we can barely see it operating. Researchers ran a simple experiment. They asked people to choose between two scenarios: earning $50,000 a year while everyone around you earns $25,000, or earning $100,000 a year while everyone around you earns $200,000. The majority chose the first option. They would literally take less money to feel relatively better off. This is not irrational from an evolutionary standpoint. Status and relative position genuinely mattered to survival in ancestral environments, but in modern life, it reliably makes us miserable, because there will always be someone earning more. Living in a bigger house, driving a newer car, the comparison game has no finish line. Social media made this immeasurably worse. You are no longer comparing yourself to your immediate neighbors. You are comparing yourself to the most curated, highlighted, financially successful moments of people you barely know across an entire global network. Every scroll is a potential downward comparison, and each one quietly recalibrates what you think you should have, what you think your life should look like, what you believe you deserve before you can be happy. The goalpost moves every time you open your phone. Here's what the research says about wealth and social comparison together. The wealthier people get, the more their comparison group expands upward. A person earning $40,000 compares themselves to their neighborhood. A person earning $400,000 compares themselves to millionaires. A person with $10 million compares themselves to billionaires. The circle of envy grows with the income. Satisfaction, counterintuitively, often doesn't. This is one reason very wealthy people sometimes report feeling surprisingly ordinary. Not content, not grateful, just ordinary. Because ordinary is always relative to whoever is standing next to you. But there is a powerful counterforce to all of this: gratitude. And the science on gratitude is unexpectedly strong. Not gratitude as a vague, positive attitude, but as a specific, practiced, deliberate attention to what already exists. Studies consistently show that people who regularly acknowledge what they have report higher happiness levels than those with objectively better circumstances who don't. Gratitude short-circuits the comparison trap. It redirects attention from what is missing to what is present, and the brain, which is simply a pattern-following machine, starts to notice more of what it's been trained to look for. This connects back to money in a specific way. The pleasure of an experience or a purchase decays with familiarity, but that decay can be slowed significantly. By anticipating it beforehand and reflecting on it afterward, savoring is a real psychological process. Talking about a meal before you eat it, thinking about a vacation while you're on it, looking at photos from a trip months later. Each of these extends the emotional value of what you spent. You are essentially getting more happiness per dollar, without spending an extra cent. Now let's look at what the research says about basic needs and the happiness floor. Below a certain income, happiness drops sharply and quickly. This is not about wanting more. It's about genuine deprivation, not knowing if the electricity stays on, skipping meals, living in unsafe conditions, chronic uncertainty about fundamental survival. These are not merely uncomfortable. They are psychologically corrosive at a deep level. Children who grow up in poverty show measurable changes in brain development, related to stress response, impulse control, and emotional regulation. Not because poverty makes people lesser, because the brain develops under the conditions it lives in, and chronic scarcity is a brutal developmental condition. At this level, money absolutely buys happiness. More precisely, money removes suffering, and the removal of suffering is happiness in the most basic and important sense. When we talk about whether money buys happiness, we often imagine this question from a position of relative comfort, with a floor under us already. For the roughly 700 million people living in extreme global poverty, the answer is not a philosophical nuance. It is a concrete and urgent yes. Here's where the science lands when you put it all together. Money buys happiness when it addresses real scarcity. It buys unhappiness when it feeds comparison and status anxiety. It generates more lasting joy when spent on others and on experiences. It creates relief and freedom when used to buy back time. And beyond a certain level of security, more of it helps much less than we expect. The psychological term for this expectation gap is effective forecasting. We are systematically, reliably bad at predicting what will make us feel good. We overestimate how happy positive events will make us, and we overestimate how devastated negative events will leave us. We think the promotion will change how Tuesday morning feels. We think the new apartment will make us feel like a different person. We think the number in our bank account will finally feel like enough. It almost never works out the way we predict. And yet we keep predicting it the same way, every time. This isn't stupidity. It's a feature of how human imagination works. When we picture a future event, we focus on the event itself. We don't picture the traffic on the way to our bigger house. We don't picture the maintenance costs and the neighbor disputes. We don't picture how quickly the new sofa becomes furniture we stop seeing. We picture the highlight. And our brain treats the highlight as the whole experience. This is why people who have already won the lottery are the best predictors of how much it will and won't change their lives. They lived it. They know which parts of the prediction were wrong. What this means practically is uncomfortable to accept. The version of yourself that earns more, that owns more, that achieves the financial milestone you're currently aiming at, will feel more similar to your current self than you expect. Not identical, not unchanged, but far closer than the gap you feel right now would suggest. This could sound like a reason to give up, to stop trying, to accept less. That is not what the research suggests at all. It suggests getting more precise, pursuing financial security because scarcity genuinely causes suffering, spending on experiences with people you love because that actually works, buying time back wherever you can because it keeps working, resisting the comparison spiral because it has no end, and noticing what you already have because the brain rewards that too. The question isn't whether money can buy happiness. The question is whether you know which kind of happiness you're actually missing, and whether money is even the right tool for that particular job, because the research on what consistently predicts a happy life is not really about money. Study after study, decade after decade, points to the same answer: the quality of your relationships, the strength of your close connections, whether you feel seen, loved, and part of something beyond yourself. These are the variables that show up again and again at the top of the data. Not net worth, not square footage, not the number of countries visited, the people who call you when something goes wrong, and the people you call back. Money can support those relationships. It can remove the financial stress that corrodes them. It can fund the experiences that build them. It can buy the time that allows them. In this way, money is a tool that can point in the right direction, but a tool aimed by someone who doesn't know what they're actually building will construct the wrong thing with remarkable efficiency. So you're still in traffic on Tuesday morning. The raise happened, the title changed, and you feel more or less the same. That's not a failure. That's your brain working exactly as designed, adapting, resetting, moving the baseline up. The question underneath the question was never really about money. It was about what you were hoping the money would fix, and whether you've looked clearly enough at that thing to know what it actually needs. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys the conditions under which happiness becomes possible. What you build inside those conditions, that part is entirely up to you. Thanks for watching. Check my other videos on other interesting topics. See you